In the name of my ancestors, peace forever and always, and welcome to another edition of what we call the Reality's Temple on Earth Internet Ministry. I am the gatekeeper, the host of this program, known here on social media. Wherever you may find me, I am known as the mighty Angel Snub Nub 7. I am your soul brother, number one. I just recently was watching an old classic that many of you are familiar with. An old TV sitcom called Good Times. It was very dynamite. The story of a family living in the ghetto in the 1970s. Florida, and James Evans and young militant Michael and J.J. Evans and of course Thelma Evans. And on this episode, I was reminded of something that the black conscious community, blackity black, the scholarship, these historians, self-made historians, I'm reminded of something I can talk about because I was there, I experienced it, was in my lifetime. I don't have to read no books. I saw it as it made itself manifest, as it revealed itself to me, because I was part of it. I was alive. I don't have to read about it in a book. But it's something that either we don't know or we ignore. But it is important that we recognize and talk about this. And it's a reason of why I really don't get upset with soul brothers and sisters. I really don't get, it gets frustrating. I get disappointed and get a little angry, but I will get over it because I understand why. There are so many things that we have to work on to become a people. We're not a people. We're called a people, the black American, the African American, soul brothers and sisters in this country. We are called a people by default. We're not a people. If we were a people, we would be doing much, much better, because being a people means that we have something to unify ourselves. There's some type of glue that makes us a people, but we're not a people because we lack glue. And you cannot become a people if the adults can't think. All you see in the black conscious community, the only thing you see in black America is a bunch of emotion. You're not dealing with individuals. You're not dealing with adults. You're not dealing with people that can think. And Good Times reminds us what happened to us. Now we talk about the crack epidemic. And there are many who would talk about, the crack epidemic. There were those who would talk about welfare. And they took the man out of the house and all this other stuff. But they never talk about this part of our history. That's why I wanted to put emphasis on it and remind you of who you are and why we're having such a difficult time in communication. So in this episode of Good Times, JJ's girlfriend was pregnant. But JJ wasn't the father. Many of you probably saw this episode. Henrietta. But it reminds me of another epidemic that we don't know or we don't want to talk about. The black teenage epidemic, which began around the time of Good Times, 75, 76, somewhere in there, in that area. That's why they made an episode about the black teenager having a baby. And this was the late 1970s. By the time I got into high school, the early 80s, the late 70s, early 80s, it was really getting it going. And if you do your research, and if you get the information, there are probably articles about the black teenage epidemic. And some of you might just say, ain't nothing but some young girls having babies. What's the big deal? Ain't nothing. So what? We need to populate. We need to make babies. This is the problem. And probably the reason why many of you won't talk about it, because this is a child, teenager, children having babies. We talked about that on this platform before. You're dealing with children, male and female. These are boys and girls. These are not adults. These are teenagers. Some as young as 9, 10 years old. They weren't even teenagers. As young as 9 and 10. Began spitting out babies. And then at that time, the government was subsidizing this behavior because a young girl could get pregnant. And they would subsidize the young girl. She would get what we call Section 8 and WIC and all this. And she was able to move out to mama's house and get all these different, it's not privileges, whatever. Get these things. And when some of these other young girls saw that these young girls was getting their own apartment, you a teenager, or if you don't get your own apartment, they was giving you a lot of money on welfare and all this kind. They started having a good time. Good time. Dynamite. It wasn't dynamite. The young girl was pregnant by the young boy. So we had children for a long period of time, almost as long as the crack epidemic. Children spitting out babies. What does that mean in the overall scheme of things? It means that if you are maybe 45 years or younger, it means a lot of you was raised by children with the help of your grandparents. But you was raised by children. And a child can't teach a baby nothing. That's a big problem for us. What can a child? Many of you are adults and can't teach a child nothing. I will say that again. You're an adult and can't teach a child nothing. So we know that these children during this epidemic can't teach children nothing. It's like playing with a living baby doll to them. And some of you nurturing or you call raising your children, that's how you treat your children, like you playing doll, baby doll, Barbie. You treating this living human being like a doll. reason why some of you are in bad shape mentally. Because you was raised by a child. And the child view you as really as another child. The child don't really view you as a parent. And you will hear them say that this child, that's like the little sister. That's you, the parent. But you're only about 10, 15 or whatever years older than your child. There's no parent gonna call, that's my child. That's my son, that's my daughter. You're not gonna call your child, that's my baby sister. That's your child that came out your womb. So we have children that raised by children. And so that's why some of you are so messed up. And that's probably the reason why a lot of you won't talk about your parents, because you and your parents are not that far apart from each other. My mother was 26 years older than me. She was 26 years old when she gave birth to me. How many of you can say that? So she was very, very well grown. Many of you are not going to talk about your parents because your mama was 16, 15, 13, 19, 19. And of course, you might not think too much of this either. But when all these young ladies are put on welfare, they are encouraged not to breastfeed. Put that child on Similac. Put that child on Enfamil. You might not think too much of that. But when you put a child, a human being, on Enfamil or cow's milk, Similac, that means this child is not getting proper nourishment. It's missing something because cow's milk was designed for a cow. Similac was designed for Frankenstein monster. Similac and Enfamil was designed for Frankenstein monster. It was not. It's chemical, some kind of chemical somebody threw in a laboratory. And it's very, very sad. What kind of human being have we become when a child don't like or cannot drink human breast milk? There are children who are allergic to human breast milk. What kind of human is this? Can you imagine a lion or antelope or zebra and the baby is allergic to, this baby zebra is allergic to zebra milk, and that the lion is allergic to lion milk? Can you imagine that? Unnatural. So if the child is not getting proper nourishment, that means the child is not being properly developed. And many of you, we can tell that you're not properly developed, especially in one of the vital organs in early development that's very important is our brain. So I know that you are a Similac baby. We know that you are Enfamil cow's milk baby because you don't think worth nothing. Least to say, you're already in bad shape because the black man and woman in America, the soul brother and sister in America, the so-called African American, you already are conditioned to be spooky anyway. You're spiritual. A lot of people get on my case. Well, brother, we've been spiritual. Black folks been spiritual for thousands of years. Just because millions of people have believed in something for thousands of years. If it's stupid, it just means y'all was stupid for thousands of years. It does not make it credible. It does not make it valid. And somehow you're supposed to come back into power because a spaceship or some invisible god or the demons, you're going to turn into some kind of conscious energy. So you already are conditioned to be a loony bin. And so we having babies, raising babies, and we're born already with a birth defect that we gave ourselves because she did not put the baby on her breast. So that means the brain is lacking proper development. So that's why you don't understand me. You don't understand those of us who can actually think. You don't understand nobody with critical thinking skills. You need to find somebody to do your thinking for you. So that's why you hold on to your Bible. That's why you hold on to the supernatural. You need to hold on. You need to find a source outside yourself because you can't think worth a damn, and you know it. So you need to find something to read. You need to find something to copy, something to impersonate. Because you don't have no idea who you are, because that was not part of your development to be you. You are now in a position to be easily molded and influenced to become something outside of yourself. Because a child raised you, because you wasn't put on the breast, you're lacking proper brain development, and you are born within a people that's spooky, that's spiritual. A people with a slave mentality looking for something to bow down and serve. People who look for pleasure, so give me my drugs, give me my alcohol, give me my Netflix, give me my pornography, give me my Chuck E. Cheese coupons, eat myself to death. Something, pleasure seekers. And you have even made knowledge something of pleasure, of your enjoyment, to give you a sense of euphoria. Because you need. But when we're born, we're supposed to be given everything that we need. But when we have been made by children, made by a spooky environment, made by physically given a disadvantage, this is where we find ourselves. So I don't get, and I should not be angry at us because we're in bad shape. I understand why. Because we're not properly developed. Just like our sister Dr. Frances Cress Welsing said, we have a childlike mindset. And this is the reason why, because a lot of us was raised by children. 45 and younger. A lot of you, and you know that you was raised by a child. Some of us even brag about it. Ain't nothing to brag about, being raised by a child. That's why some of the mothers and the children look so young together, because your mama and father was teenagers, children.